This is Korea News for April 13, 2022. It was confirmed that Lee Jae-myung, the suspect in the Yongso Valley murder case, did not repay the debt owed to the loan company, but continued to put in the insurance money of her husband, Yoon Seok-yeol, the victim. The suspicion of committing the crime for the benefit of her husband's death insurance is growing stronger. JTBC reported on the 12th that Lee Jae-myung paid her husband's life insurance premiums while she was being sued for non-payment of loans from a loan company in 2019. According to reports, Lee Jae-myung was sued by a loan company in May 2019. The loan company filed a lawsuit accusing Lee Jae-myung of not repaying the loan of 1.99 million won since 2014 because of the debt Lee Jae-myung owed even before she married her husband. In March 2017, after her marriage, Junhyeok was also sued by another loan company to repay 2.77 million won. Lee Jae-myung did not repay the debt to both companies despite the lawsuit. However, during the same period, Junhyeok continued to pay her husband Yoon's life insurance premium. After the death of her husband, Junhyeok was able to receive up to 800 million won in death insurance from the insurance company. However, after Yoon's death, the insurance company suspected insurance fraud and did not pay the insurance money. At the time of his death, Mr. Yoon had only 3 life insurance policies for which he was insured. It was confirmed that Lee Jae-myung paid more than 500,000 won a month in premiums to maintain this much insurance. It was revealed that Lee Jae-myung, a suspect in the Valley murder, broke up with her victim, her husband, Yoon Seok-yeol, shortly after he had a wedding with another man a few months ago. On the 12th, TV Chosun reported about Lee Jae-myung's marriage in 2016. According to reports, it was confirmed that Lee Jae-myung married a man different from the victim Yoon in May 2016. At the time, the wedding invitation that Lee Jae-myung sent to her acquaintances stated that the wedding would be held on May 15 at a wedding hall in Incheon. A photo of Lee Jae-myung with this man was also confirmed. However, it was reported that the couple broke up shortly after the wedding. A few months later, in the fall of the same year, Lee Jae-myung married Yoon. Previously, it was also claimed that Lee Jae-myung did something suspicious of marriage fraud in 2015. It is said that she tried to steal her blessing after marrying a man. Police are said to be investigating whether Lee has committed fraudulent acts such as marrying several times. The government has decided to expand the target of the 4th dose of the COVID-19 vaccine to those aged 60 and over. This is seen as a measure to prevent discarding of vaccines that have almost reached their shelf life. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters said, "We plan to expand the 4th dose vaccination even to the elderly over the age of 60, and this is to analyze the trend of the 4th dose in other countries, such as the United States and the United Kingdom, and to work with experts in Korea." The plan was made after thorough verification of the effectiveness and safety of the inoculation, he said. He added, "We will provide detailed information such as vaccination methods and implementation schedule through a briefing from the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at 2:30 p.m. today." The government has only implemented the 4th vaccination in nursing hospitals and facilities nationwide and those with weakened immunity since last February. It is noteworthy that Hyundai Motor Group Chairman Chung Eui-sun, who has been on a business trip to the United States for the 3rd time this year, will make the final decision on the site of the electric vehicle production plant locally. According to Hyundai Motor Group on the 13th, Chairman Chung departed for the U.S. 2 days ago to attend the New York Auto Show 2022, which opens on the same day, local time. The New York Auto Show was cancelled in 2020 and last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but resumed this year after 3 years. At the New York Auto Show, Chairman Chung is known to check the transition status of global automakers to electrification and trends in the North American automobile market, but inside and outside the industry, there is speculation that Chairman Chung will select a site for a local electric vehicle production plant on this business trip. It is predicted that Chairman Chung is highly likely to announce the site of an electric vehicle production plant in the United States and the specific investment scale in the first half of this year as early as possible. As Hyundai Motor Group announced in May of last year a plan to invest $7.4 billion, about 9 trillion won, in the U.S. by 2025 for local production of electric vehicles and expansion of existing production facilities, there is a possibility that Chairman Chung will materialize this on this U.S. business trip. As potential plant candidates, plans to add an additional electric vehicle production line to Hyundai Motors' Alabama plant and Kia's Georgia plant, which produce internal combustion engine vehicles, are being proposed. Regarding this, a Hyundai Motor official declined to comment, saying, "There is nothing that can be confirmed at this time regarding the site of an electric vehicle plant in the United States." Hyundai Motor Company will sequentially produce Genesis' third electric vehicle GV70 and midsize SUV Santa Fe hybrid at its Alabama plant in the U.S. from October. While attention is focused on the electrification strategy announced by Hyundai Motor Group, the strategy is to use the Alabama plant as a base for producing electric vehicles. At the New York Auto Forum held ahead of the New York Auto Show on the 12th, local time, Hyundai Motors North America headquarters head Jose Munoz said, "We plan to produce the Santa Fe hybrid from October and the Genesis GV70 electric vehicle version from December at the Montgomery, Alabama plant," said. He added, Hyundai Motor Group plans to invest $7.4 billion in the U.S. by 2025. Hyundai Motors Alabama production subsidiary also announced on the same day that it would invest an additional $300 million, 360 billion won, and create 200 new jobs to expand its SUV production capacity, including the Santa Fe hybrid. Through this extension, the production space for the production of eco-friendly vehicles and a more strengthened production line will be reinforced, and production will begin in October. This is the first time that the Alabama plant is producing electric and hybrid vehicles. This is because local electric vehicle production has been delayed due to discussions with domestic labor unions. The Alabama plant is currently producing 5 models: Sonata, Santa Fe, Tucson, Avant, and pickup truck Santa Cruz. Hyundai Motors U.S. sales in the first quarter fell 4.5% year-on-year. However, consumer demand for eco-friendly car models, including hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and electric vehicles, remained strong, accounting for 16% of total sales. It is known that Hyundai Motor Company decided to expand its production line to respond flexibly to the increasing production of electric vehicles in the United States in the future. The possibility that the Alabama plant will play a key role in the U.S. EV production strategy to be confirmed by Hyundai Motor Group Chairman Junhyeok in the future has increased. Alabama has an advantageous position in supply and demand for electric vehicle batteries as it is close to Georgia, where LG Energy Solutions and SK On will build new battery factories. LG Energy Solutions is building a plant in Georgia by investing a total of $3 trillion. SK On has already completed the first plant in Georgia and plans to build a second plant. Hyundai Motor has taken the first step toward electric vehicle production in the United States, said Kim Il-sung, head of the Alabama production plant. Alabama Governor Kay Ebay responded, "Hyundai Motors' plans to grow its Alabama plant will help our state's auto industry prepare for the electric vehicle revolution." After giving up her royal status and marrying her commoner, Princess Marco moved to New York to find her new job. According to the New York Post on the 12th, local time, former Princess Marco, who moved to New York after giving up her Japanese royal title after her marriage last year, works at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. He is said to be helping the museum prepare an exhibition related to Ippen, a Buddhist monk from the 13th century in Kamakura, Japan. Princess Marco earned a degree in art and cultural heritage while in college, majored in art history from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland, and received a master's degree in art and gallery studies from the University of Leicester, UK in 2016. Before marriage, he worked as a special researcher at the University of Tokyo Art Museum. Former Princess Marco is known to help with the preparation of the exhibition as a volunteer rather than an official at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Former Princess Marco is the eldest daughter of Crown Prince Fumito, younger brother of Emperor Naruhito. Although her marriage partner, whom he met in college, has had financial issues and other controversial issues, she gave up her royal status after getting married in October of last year. According to Japanese law, if a princess marries a commoner, she must leave the royal family. Her husband, Komuroke, is currently working as a paralegal at a New York law firm. Shortly before his marriage, he took the New York bar exam, but failed. It was reported on the 11th that the U.S. Navy's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, Abraham Lincoln, will arrive in the East Sea on the 15th to conduct training with the South Korean Navy. It is interpreted that the United States is sending a warning message to North Korea as the possibility of North Korea's 7th nuclear test increases. According to military officials on the 11th, it is known that the Lincoln carrier is likely to enter the high seas of the East Sea on the 15th to conduct joint Raucous naval exercises. The U.S. Navy carrier's entry into the East Sea is the first in 4 years and 5 months since North Korea's Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, ICBM, test launch and nuclear test in November 2017, when 3 carriers gathered in the East Sea. On the 15th of last month, the Lincoln carrier scrambled aircraft to the West Sea to contain North Korea's ICBM test launch. The Lincoln carrier's entry into the East Sea is interpreted as a measure in response to the increased possibility of North Korea launching additional ICBMs or nuclear tests on the occasion of the Day of the Sun, the birthday of President Kim Il-sung on the 15th. The Lincoln carrier carries about 80 aircraft, including stealth fighters, and operates with a carrier group including nuclear-powered submarines, Aegis destroyers, and missile cruisers, military officials analyzed. The Lincoln carrier is expected to conduct ground target strike drills using aircraft and reconnaissance operations targeting North Korea's nuclear and missile facilities, including the Punggye-ri nuclear test site. The US-led North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, said on the 12th that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky made a public request for arms aid through a video address to the Korean parliament, saying, "Korea's decision to provide arms to Ukraine depends on its own country." NATO also pointed out that North Korea, a Russian ally, is concerned about the missile's ability to reach NATO territory. President Zelensky expressed his appreciation for the Korean government's support for Ukraine in a video address to South Korean lawmakers in the auditorium of the National Assembly Library on the afternoon of the 11th the day before, and said, "There are various military equipment that can block Russian ships and Russian missiles in Korea. I would be grateful if you could help us in the Republic of Korea so that we can fight against Russia." It is noteworthy that this is an open request for military assistance from South Korea. "Every country has the right to independence," Zelensky said. "All cities have the right to live in peace, and everyone has the right not to die in war," he said. "For these things, I ask you to stand with us and stand up against Russia." He also recalled the Korean War that Korea suffered in connection with the Russian invasion. President Zelensky called Korean people, and said, "There was a war in the 1950s and many civilians lost their lives, but Korea won. At that time, the international community helped a lot. Right now, there is no expectation that Russia will stop on its own. In this situation, it is difficult for us to expect that reason will overcome," he said. The South Korean government has provided military supplies such as bulletproof helmets, tents, and blankets, medical supplies, and humanitarian aid, but has repeatedly stated its position that there is a limited aspect in relation to the support of lethal weapons. The U.S. government has ordered the withdrawal of non-essential workers from the Chinese consulate general in Shanghai. This is a further strengthening of the previous recommendation for voluntary departure. The Chinese government is expected to protest. The U.S. State Department announced on the 11th, local time, that it had ordered the withdrawal of non-essential personnel and their families from the Consulate General in Shanghai in response to the spread of COVID-19 and the Chinese government's response. On the 8th, the State Department allowed them to leave the country voluntarily and issued a travel advisory level 3 travel to China. The background for the withdrawal order was not explained. The State Department urged people to reconsider travel, citing arbitrary enforcement of local laws and restrictions related to the coronavirus at the time. Travelers should not travel to Hong Kong, Jilin, or Shanghai due to coronavirus-related restrictions that include the risk of separation of parents and children. All travelers should prepare to be quarantined for at least 14 days in a government-designated location upon arrival, the State Department added. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement on the 9th in the name of spokesperson Zhao Jian, saying, "We express strong dissatisfaction and desperate opposition to the U.S. side's unreasonable criticism of China's quarantine policy in the statement. Requested," he said. Strict negotiations usually mean a diplomatic protest. China is locking down each city according to dynamic zero corona, which means that if it cannot contain the corona, it will return the infected to zero with strong quarantine control after a confirmed case occurs. Shanghai also entered a phased lockdown on the 28th of last month, and the lockdown period, originally expected for 4 days, is getting longer. The city of Shanghai announced on the previous day that it would gradually lift the lockdown depending on the corona situation. President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol met with former President Park Geun-hye on the 12th and talked about how he felt sorry for the bad relationship between the special prosecutor and the suspect in the past. After meeting with former President Park at the residence of former President Park in Dalzong, Daegu on the afternoon, Yoon-elect met with reporters and said, "Isn't there a past?" It is interpreted as a remark bearing in mind that the President-elect Yoon, who was a prosecutor, was the head of the investigation team of Choi Soon-sil's investigation team in 2016 and brought a severe sentence. President-elect Yoon also explained, "We talked about the president's health, and we talked about whether there are any inconveniences in the life the president is living now." Kwon Young-se, vice chairman of the transition committee for President-elect Yoon, who was present, and Yoo Young-ha, a lawyer from former President Park, introduced in detail the conversation that took place during the meeting. Vice Chairman Kwon said, "I did it for about 50 minutes today, and I did it in a very friendly atmosphere." Combining the briefings of the two, President-elect Yoon said to former President Park, "I'm very sorry and I'm sorry. I'm always sorry." Lawyer Yoo Young-ha explained that former President Park listened calmly without any special mention. President-elect Yoon said, "There are very good policies and achievements of former President Park, but it is very unfortunate that those parts are not well known." He also mentioned, "I will succeed and widely publicize the things and policies that former President Park has done so that former President Park can be properly known and restore his honor." Former President Park expressed gratitude for such a comment. President-elect Yoon politely asked former President Park to attend the inauguration ceremony on the 10th of next month, and in response, former President Park said, "I will try to attend if possible." Regarding former President Park Chung-hee, former President Park's father, Yoon said, "I have seen data on how President Park Chung-hee managed the cabinet and the Blue House at the time, and I am learning how to lead state affairs by visiting people who worked with President Park Chung-hee." Then he said, "After being elected, I was so worried that I couldn't sleep well." Then, former President Park said, "The president's seat is heavy and large. The possibility that KTX will stop in Yangsan, Gyeongnam, where Moon Jae-in will be staying after retirement, has increased." According to Yangsan SI, Gyeongnam, on the 12th, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport recently ordered the National Railroad Corporation to sign a consignment agreement for facility improvement with Yangsan SI to stop the KTX at Mulgium Station. In this regard, National Power National Assembly member Yoon Young-sok said on the 11th, "With Yangsan City, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport, and Korail and the National Railroad Corporation confirmed the KTX stop at Mulgium Station." After confirming the stop at Mulgium Station, he also instructed the National Railroad Authority to sign a consignment agreement to improve overall facilities, such as expanding the platform at Mulgium Station and securing passenger movement routes. Yangsan City is expected to sign a facility improvement consignment agreement with the National Railroad Corporation, a public company specializing in railway facility management in the near future. Yangsan City plans to spend about 3 billion won to complete the construction, including extension of the platform, within this year. If this happens, it is expected that KTX stops will be possible early next year. Currently, the length of the platform at Mulgium Station is 300 m, and KTX Sancheon can stop. However, KTX1, which requires a platform over 380 m, cannot stop. For this reason, the length of the platform should be extended by about 120 m. When the construction is completed, Korail applies to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport to change the operation plan for KTX stops at Mulgium Station, and if it is approved, the KTX stop is confirmed. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport said, "The fact that the KTX stop problem at Mulgium Station is being pushed forward at a rapid pace has nothing to do with Moon Jae-in's coming down to Yangsan's private residence after retirement." In relation to the death of an incumbent prosecutor at the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office, the prosecution has launched a fact-finding investigation to determine the circumstances of the case. According to the police on the 12th, 30-year-old Lee, a 30-year-old first-time prosecutor belonging to the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office, fell into the parking lot on the east side of the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office building around 11:20 a.m. on the same day and was transported to the hospital, but died. After passing the bar exam, Lee worked at the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office First Criminal Division from February 7. Immediately after the incident, Mr. Lee was discovered by prosecutors who followed him after hearing a thump. The official immediately reported it to the fire department, and the fire station paramedics who arrived at the scene confirmed that Mr. Lee was in cardiac arrest and handed over to the police. A police official said, "We are investigating the exact circumstances of the incident, including whether it was an extreme choice." The Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office also launched an investigation to determine the circumstances of the incident immediately after the incident occurred. It is reported that the Supreme Prosecutor's Office will decide whether to conduct an inspection based on the results of the fact-finding investigation by the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office. Prosecutor General Kim Oh-soo announced on the 13th that I will block legislation with a desperate determination to live about the check and run that the Democratic Party enforces. President Kim told reporters on the way to the Supreme Prosecutor's Office on the morning of the same day, about the Democratic Party's decision to check and run as the party argument, "I feel very heavy and I feel sorry for the conflict and division related to the prosecution to the people. The key point is to let the police monopolize the criminal investigation," he said. The criminal code then stipulates that the subject of investigation is the prosecutor. He said, "If carried forward, only criminals will call for national hurrah, and the victims, the people, will have no place to appeal." President Kim said, "This is against justice and common sense." Fortunately, many citizens, including lawyers, academia, civic groups, and media representing our society, are pointing out the problems of the bill being rushed forward one by one. He continued, "I will never be discouraged or give up on members including myself. I will do my best to appeal and request by devising all procedures and measures according to each stage, from the President, who believes in me and has the right to vote again, and the Constitutional Court," he said. On the 12th, the Democratic Party of Korea confirmed the plan to handle the so-called examination and complete deprivation of the prosecutor's investigative power at the National Assembly in April. In response, the People's Power protested, saying, "We will mobilize all means to stop it." After discussing the agenda for prosecutorial reform at the general meeting of policymakers held in the National Assembly on the same day, the Democratic Party ratified it as the party argument. Oh Young-won, floor spokesperson for the House of Representatives after the general meeting, explained about the discussion process on the day. After a Q&A of about 20 lawmakers, the floor leader requested to ratify the party's opinion. "It can be said that it was unanimously ratified," said Oh, the floor spokesperson. "We decided to entrust detailed legislation to the leadership. In this regard," the People's Power said, "the people will severely judge the Democrats face confiscation of the inspection and overhaul bill and the bulletproof bill to conceal corruption." Criticized that if the Democratic Party tries to force the process in April, it will mobilize all means to stop it, including filibusters, said Park Hyung-soo, floor spokesperson. In the background of the Democratic Party's decision to push ahead with the examination and overhaul on the 12th, there were delegates who overwhelmingly agreed with 90% of the votes. Party delegates are generally considered to be highly involved in politics, making political decisions as they are elected from among members of the Rights Party who have been active for a long time. Meanwhile, lawmakers Lee Jae-myung Ji-han had different opinions about the promotion of the party argument. From 2 to 9 p.m. on the 11th, the Democratic Party listened to opinions on whether to promote the prosecution and media reform bills from 15,000 delegates across the country through online voting. In the survey conducted by Mobile and PC, it was reported that the turnout was about 53%, and the vote in favor was over 90%. The delegates were overwhelmingly in favor of it. Even among party officials who conducted the investigation, the majority of responses were it was quite surprising. One watchmaker said, "I knew the approval would be high, but I didn't know it would be this high." The voting results were reported at the National Assembly today. In this regard, it is reported that a consensus has been formed within the party that if it is not now, it will never be done. The idea is that if the reform bill is not passed in this National Assembly, which has won an overwhelming number of seats, it is impossible to expect the people to make a choice in the next general election. A re-elected lawmaker in the metropolitan area of the Democratic Party said, "There was a consensus as to when we could have an overwhelming number of seats like now," he said. There were also opposing opinions. A re-elected member of the metropolitan area said, "If the June 1st election is a general election, would it be possible to push ahead with such a bill unreasonably? Isn't it because it's a local election?" The People's Power clearly objected to the Democratic Party's push to legislate the bill. The Justice Party is also ordering a settlement process through the establishment of a separate consensus mechanism. It is pointed out that they are concerned about the frame of Democratic Party's monopoly and one-sided treatment in the next local election. The opinions of lawmakers known as Lee Jae-myung Ji were divided. Rep. Kim By-yeong-wook and Kim Young-jin, who are known to be members of the 7-member association, raised a prudence in the promotion of the party argument on the same day, while Rep. Kim Nam-guk did not express any particular opinion. Rep. Min Hyung-bae is said to have expressed his strong support for the proposal. However, Kim Nam-guk, a member of the National Assembly, expressed his welcome intention by posting to his social network service immediately after his adoption of his party argument, "The Prosecutors Reform Authority Reform Bill and the Media Reform Act have been adopted as the party argument." On the 12th, the Democratic Party of Korea adopted the so-called examination and complete deprivation of the prosecution's investigative powers as its party argument, crossing the first barrier of internal opposition. However, as the April deal was nailed down, the People's Power, the Justice Party, prosecutors, and legal organizations are all concerned. Some point out that the situation that was isolated in the process of pushing for revisions to the Media Arbitration Act last year may be repeated. The Democratic Party adopted the prosecution and media reform legislation as its party argument at the policy meeting on the same day. Jin Sung-jun, senior floor leader, met with reporters after the National Assembly meeting and said, if the bill is passed, the promulgation will take effect 3 months later, after which the investigative power will be separated. He said. The complete inspection bill under consideration by the Democratic Party, in principle, aims to abolish the prosecutor's direct investigation authority as stipulated in Article 196 of the Criminal Procedure Act. All of the proviso provisions of Article 4 of the Prosecutor's Office Act, which stipulates the right to investigate corruption, economy, public officials, elections, defense industry, and major catastrophes, which were held by the prosecution's 6 major crimes, will also be deleted. Instead, it is being considered to restrict the scope of investigation to only some cases, including crimes related to police duties, by newly enacting Article 197(3) of the Criminal Procedure Act. The Democratic Party's decision to adopt the party opinion despite opposition from some lawmakers at the National Assembly today seems to be due to the judgment that it will be difficult to process the reform bill for 5 years if President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol does not complete the review before taking office. Junhyeok, head of the Democratic Party's Emergency Committee, said in a radio program that day, there is a time for reform. Moreover, as the prosecution collectively protested, Democratic lawmakers who were in the neutral zone could no longer oppose the inspection. The strong supporters of the Democratic Party also pressured lawmakers with text bombs and other means to protect Moon Jae-in and former Gyeonggi Governor Lee Jae-myung, who was a presidential candidate. The Democratic Party supporters are monitoring and the prosecution collectively opposes it, said Han Young-jin, a member of the Democratic Party, in a phone call. Also, in an internal opinion poll related to prosecutorial reform, it is said that one of the reasons for the leadership's confidence was that the opinions in favor of the bill in April were higher than those in opposition. There was concern within the party that the supporters might not participate in the voting if the prosecution reform was not pursued ahead of the local elections in June. This is the opposite of what Park Ji-hyun, chairman of Emergency Countermeasures, said in his remarks at the General Assembly of the House of Representatives, saying, I am worried about losing the local elections and losing ground. However, there is also a forecast that the process in April will not be easy. If the Democratic Party, with 172 seats, speeds up the process of the Standing Committee, and proposes a bill to the plenary session following the sole process of the Legislative and Judiciary Committee, it will have to overcome the last gate of the filibuster of the people's power. In order to forcibly terminate the filibuster, the consent of 180 members, 3/5 of the current lawmakers, is required. The 172-seat Democratic Party has no way to end the filibuster of the people's power without the consent of the 6 Justice Party seats. In addition, the opposition of the Progressive Justice Party and civil society groups, as well as the power of the people and the prosecution, is expected to put a burden on the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party tried to handle the Media Arbitration Act alone last year, but the Justice Party and civil society groups opposed it and failed to gain social recognition for the justice for reform. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.